Hello, welcome back. Uh, this one starts off with probably my favorite story in the entire book. It's a story about Dale Carnegie's sister-in-law, and she was trying to get in touch with her sons, the adult children, and they wouldn't respond. She was making phone calls and leaving messages and writing them letters and telling friends, when you see my son, make sure you tell him to call. I want to talk to him. And the kids wouldn't respond, typical kids. And Carnegie heard this and said, okay, let me handle this. So he sends the kids a letter. And in the letter, he mentions, oh, by the way, I hope you enjoy the $5. Now, again, this was 1930s, so that'd be like putting about $50 or $100 in the envelope. So he sends the kids a letter and says, oh, by the way, hope you enjoy the money I sent. And the trick is he he didn't send the money. And yet he said he did in the letter. Well, the minute those kids got the letter, they immediately were on the phone calling, oh, by the way, you forgot to send the money in the envelope. So a cute story. Money gets everybody's attention, kind of what we talked about in the previous module. But I just get, for whatever reason, that just struck me as just hysterical. I can really see that. That would have been me if I were the kid. I would have, what? Where's the $100? I would have wanted to know. So but to me, that was a nice way to start this section. Okay, next thing is probably the most practical sales technique. I have made a fortune off of this one technique. Basically, it's not just a sales technique, can be used in a variety of areas when you need to persuade someone to your point of view. But it's known as the Ben Franklin close. Yeah, that's probably what it's most famous as. I actually have a sales book I teach out of that talks about this, not as the Ben Franklin close, but as a T account close. And you'd get that if you're an accountant type, or if you're a business major, you would understand what a T account is. Here's what you do. When, again, you're trying to get them to buy your point of view or your product or service. What you want to do is sit down and you hand a legal pad, at least I always use the legal pad, hand a legal pad and a pen over to the prospect. And the prospect gets it, and you tell them, okay, draw a line across the top and then draw a vertical line right down the middle. So again, it looks like a T. That's hence the T account reference earlier. Now, what you do is say, I've just made you my sales presentation. Now, as with all things, there are some advantages or reasons why you should buy. There are some disadvantages, obviously, too. And I want to be fair. And so what I think we should do is have you list out the advantages, list out the disadvantages, and then to make a logical decision, you would obviously want to go with the one where, you weigh both sides and go with what is in your best interest. And you say something like, is that fair enough? And they always say yes. And now they're sitting with this blank sheet of paper, and they have to come up with what would be an advantage. I'll just use an example. Let's say I'm trying to sell them a particular house. Now, what is the advantage of this house? Well, it was in the neighborhood. I will always sort of start them off with, it's always hard to get started. So you help them with the first one or two advantages. What is an advantage? Well, it was in the neighborhood you liked. And they write that down. And then two, what else? And you ask them what else. And then they will say, well, it has 4 bedrooms and I wanted 4, and they'll write 4 bedrooms. And okay, they will go get a couple, and then you feed them a couple, and they get a couple, and then you feed them. And the idea is you're going to have a long list of advantages. And so you got the left side visually has a long list of advantages. Then on the right side, say, okay, now once you're done with the advantages, say, okay, now to be fair, we said we got to look at what the downside is. Why shouldn't you buy this house? Or why shouldn't you buy this car? Or why shouldn't you buy the life insurance we just talked about? Why shouldn't you buy the car insurance? Why shouldn't you buy whatever? You see how this works? Okay. Now, and this one, I am not going to help them at all. Or if I help them at all, I give them some trivial disadvantage. That, oh, you didn't like the mailbox. You didn't like the look of the mailbox. Okay. Now we're looking at a $500,000 house and it got all these advantages. And they didn't like the mailbox. Okay, write that down. And then just let them on their own come up with the downsides. And invariably there's only a couple. And they usually will come up 1, 2, 3. Then there's a list of advantages. And then let them sit there in silence for a bit. And when it looks like, well, it looks like you're done, I guess, huh? And sure enough, I can't think of a thing. Okay. Now, based on that, we said we were going to look at it and you were going to make a decision based on what's best for you. What do you think we should do? And what do you suppose they come up with? I guess, and they actually say this. And they'll just ponder and stare at it. And, well, I guess it means I should buy. Okay, and let's fill out the application. That's exactly how it works. So, with that said, we will move on. Another point that they make in personal relationships is it's better to be interested. Everybody thinks they want to be interesting. The people will like me if I'm interesting. And what the Carnegie view here is the idea it's better to be interested in them versus interesting personally. And there's this concept called the form approach. Family, occupation, recreation, and message. I teach this in almost all my classes. This is a way to sort of build rapport with people when you first meet them. And it really works well. It takes a little time. And so but it's usually well worth it if you're meeting someone. And you can experiment a little bit after we walk you through this. You should try this practice with people. When you meet strangers, just work on this a little bit. And you're going to find this is magic. It changes everything. Now, what it is people aren't interested in other people. Remember earlier we said what's in it for me is the focus. And yet when most people meet someone, I don't talk about them. I tell you why I'm great. I have a PhD in finance. Woohoo! I'm a chartered financial analyst. I'm a chartered financial consultant. I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm this. And everybody wants to slap you. Just shut up about yourself. I want to talk about me. And that's what they're thinking. How can I work in? So what we want to do is work that to our advantage. So the FORM it's an acronym, stands for Family, Occupation, Recreation. And then get into your message. So now I actually recommend you don't start with family, especially if you're in a 25, 30 year age group. If I start off with, gee, are you married? Or, they're going to think you're coming on to them or asking for a date or something, and that will kind of mess up the whole setup here. So you don't want to do that. Start off with occupation or recreation, whichever seems appropriate for your situation. Probably the best route is occupation. What do you do when you meet a stranger? You've done the intro. Hi, how are you? My name's Dave. What's yours? Then it's, what do you do? Oh, you're an accountant. Oh, that's interesting. So you can lie to them here. Tell them being an accountant is interesting. How'd you get into that? How long have you been an accountant? So whatever they tell you, you pump it for more information. And every now and then nod, oh, that's interesting. And smile and let them talk. And at some logical time, they'll be done. And when they're done, move on to recreation. Gee, what do you do for fun? Or you walk in, you're in their office and they have a fish on the wall mounted. Oh, are you a fisherman? Oh, yeah. Gee, did you catch that one? Oh, you did? Tell me about it. It looks pretty big. How big was it? Oh, and they'll go into that. No, it was 28 inches long and it weighed 5 pounds. And I caught it on, depending on their personality, by the way, this is also good for learning about their personality style, which comes up in later in the program. And it's a very good way for you to break the ice, learn remember we said, find out what they want, give it to them. Somewhere along the way, they're going to give you all kinds of clues to how you can kind of motivate them, what their problems are. They'll be built in here. If they go on and on about their kids, by the way, that's why I don't start with family. If you do the occupation recreation, invariably they mention at some point, are they married or not, whether they have kids or not, and so forth. So you pick up the family stuff. And if in recreation, all they talk about is how they enjoy taking their kids fishing. And once they mention the kids fishing, and that you can just tell that they light up when talking about the kids. And if I'm a life insurance salesperson, I'm looking for that because I know this is a prospect I am going to be able to appeal to, because my product will protect his family or her family. And that's how you're kind of tweaking this whole thing. So the other thing it does is they now like you. They think you are the greatest conversationalist in the history of mankind, even though all you've said is, ooh, that's interesting. Tell me more. That's all you said for 10 minutes here. And yet they think you're brilliant. You are the most fun person they have talked to in the entire day, or probably in their last month, because you gave them a chance to talk about all of their cool stuff. And a lot of this stuff they can't ever talk about. They can't mention their basketball story to their wife because the wife has heard it for the last 30 years. And so the minute you mention the word basketball, well, yeah, when I was in high school, I did this. Your wife throws a bag over your head. You're the first person who, when you saw the basketball trophy up there, you asked him about, gee, did you make the big shot at the end of the game to win? Oh, what? You really scored 38 points in a game? That's amazing. And you love telling that story. And the person who lets you tell that story, that person you like. And if you like them, you're going to want to probably do business with them. And the only people other than ourselves that we are really interested in are other people who let us know that they are interested in us. Now, if you let me know that you're interested in me, I might actually be a little interested in you. And at some stage after the 45-minute thing where they've been talking, they might actually revert back and, oh, by the way, what do you do? It's just funny how it works that way. But eventually they'll come around to, oops, I guess it's proper etiquette. I got to ask you something too. And then, by the way, don't go and tell them, gee, I scored 50 points in a game. Don't try to make them look bad. Or I caught a bigger fish. So keep it to yourself. But that's kind of how that interaction goes. But it's a really effective technique.